Happy 10th, everybody. And last night I Googled 10th anniversary gift materials, and tin and aluminum came up as a traditional gift material. So if anybody wants to...
Yeah, wait a minute.
We have our
closest I can get, yeah. The modern day gift is a diamond. Does anybody have one of those? The origin of our organization started back in December of '97. I called Marilyn Foster to volunteer my services for something, and she asked me what I did in my career, and I told her. And her response was, have we got a job for you? Because that previous May in '97, I think all the papers were consummated for our program, and it was off and running. So we met down at the New Cumberland Senior Citizen Center in December. And there were, as best as I can mentally recall, about 15 people scattered around a table like this. And we had as our speaker, or our trainer, if you will, Professor Jay Davidson, who was a retired environmental science professor from Shippensburg. So he gave us a 2-day training course on just the chemistry. We didn't even get the macros yet. And at that time, we had a VISTA representative, which is no longer in the program. That's Volunteers in Service to America. And you probably remember were you a VISTA?
No.
Okay, you had a VISTA down there, right?
Right.
And they were funded by, I'm not sure, state or federal monies.
Corporation for National
Service. You go, girl.
Same as RSVP. They're our sisters.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, wonderful.
And
so that still exists.
Site had one.
But that VISTA rep was abolished with regard to our program.
Right.
Because the money ran out for, her name was Peggy Bradfield.
Right.
Bradfield. So there were 15 of us, and as I recall, the oldest volunteer, we broke off into 3 teams of about 4 or 5 people each. And at that time, now that our oldest volunteer is 98, 99, our oldest was a Welsh lady from Mechanicsburg named Mrs. Patterson. And she was out there in those cold mornings, she was our recorder, taking notes. And we first monitored on January 20th of 1998. Just a few weeks after our training, we all met along Yellow Breeches Creek at one of Bill's sites known as Bowmansdale. And we sampled. We collected, we have quite a storage of data on that. Anyway, we've come a long way since then. We have formed now, as you all know, an operations team. It's the guiding light, if you will, for our operations. We've established some bylaws, and over the years we've had 2 darn good leaders. One is Art Sconing. He was our first chairman, and I don't know whether you know about Art, but Art and I used to do some volunteer work at one of the animal shelters, Helen Krause, down at Dillsburg. And for several hours every Monday morning we used to get down and exercise the dogs. So Art and I had a lot of time to talk. And we'd be walking along, and Art's famous expression, I never forgot this, do you know what we need? And I knew what he was going to say. We need an exhibit that spells out this. It was training exhibits. And so I knew what that meant. I'd go back and prepare a technical exhibit. I'd ship it back to Art, and he usually didn't like it that first shot, so he sent it back to me. He said, no, this is too heavy here, light here, do more in this regard. And after about 3 or 4 passes, and I'm getting a little disturbed here, Art finally approved it. But anyway, that's how a lot of your training exhibits were created. Art says, do you know what we need?
And that's why he's as white-haired as he is, trying to raise you.
He said review and approve.
Yeah.
Review and approve, yeah. And one of the exhibits he came up with, it was, I think, a brilliant idea, data evaluation protocol. How do we take a look at our data? What do we do with it? What happens if we get an abnormal reading? So I prepared, I think, a 4-page exhibit for Art, and we met with Diane Wilson and Cheryl Snyder over at DEP and ran it by them, and they approved it. So we were off and running. We had the basis of, let's say, a QAPP, a Quality Assurance Project Plan, in Art's genesis there, out of what he originated. And of course, our other leader is now our present leader, Bill Aptar. Bill, as you all know, is very active, very beneficial to the organization. He is the rep for the Yellow Breeches Watershed Association, and he's pioneering something new, probably the first of its kind across the state, and that is a composite study design plan. Bill and his teams have enormous number of sites on the Yellow Breeches, and rather than to prepare a detailed study design for each individual site, and realizing the fact that there is a lot of common material that would apply to all the sites, why not put that material up front and have appendices in the back about the specific ingredients or elements about each individual site. So Bill has, I think, is that memorandum of understanding been consummated?
Not quite.
It's in the process.
Their attorney is reviewing it.
So, you know what happens when they get
Agreement to an MOU. I thought he could buy. Oh, we got our attorney. Look at it.
But anyway, that's the two chairmen that we've had, and I think they've done and are doing a fantastic job. One of the biggest, let's say, components of our program is to get data users to determine how and where we can shift our data, or ship it, let's say, and have the people that are on the receiving end of it use it for stewardship in the community, for a lot of different programs, and we have found a lot of good users. Classic example of that is Rudy and the work she's done up at the Up Here area of Upper Dauphin, and her team, her staff. She's done a lot of innovations with PACWA and now with Twin Valley Conservation, TVC.
Right.
And a lot of things that are still not in our overall program, but she's had the exposure to. A pebble count for one, which is a nice way to evaluate one of the physical aspects of a stream. So Rudy's done a lot of work there. Arts and several other people have taken the program into the schools, not only educating the students, but even training an instructor so he in turn could educate the students. We're still doing work with the Chesapeake Bay, Conneaut and Yellow Breeches Watershed Associations, Conservation District. We provided some data to the Cumberland County Conservation District, the before and after data of them doing a project in between to see whether that project had any beneficial effects on the after data, if you will. So we provided them. And as Dave Hess mentioned a minute ago, we have the distinction of having the first approved study design in the Commonwealth. So that's quite an accolade for the group. Now, where are we going? Very quickly, we've got two major components that we've got to implement and really develop, well, let me say develop more and implement. And one is the recently approved, Beth mentioned this, the Quality Assurance Project Plan, to give our data more credibility. And it just enhances the accuracy and tolerance level of all the results that we get. So that's going to be initiated very shortly, and we're going to move forward on it. We had a QAPP, but it was not quite as detailed as the Commonwealth finally approved with EPA, so we're going to enhance that, our quality control that we've already been doing with some of the ingredients of that QAPP. So that's on the horizon for the team leaders. In fact, I think you all, the team leaders, have a copy of this plan and should review it for the next meeting, because we've got a rather tight schedule to implement. And Beth's going to be watching us to make sure we adhere to that schedule. Right, Beth?
Yes, and I slap your fingers if you don't.
And the second most important thing, and lastly, is a strategic plan for our whole capital site here. I think, well, I know that Rudy developed an outline of the components of that plan at one of the previous op team meetings. And we've got to take that now and develop it and implement it as necessary. And it's such things as more awareness in the community, more stewardship, ways to get additional funding, and last but not least, to develop new monitoring plans, or let's say components of our monitoring program, like looking at E. coli now, and perhaps introducing some of the things that Rudy's already done up in our Upper Dauphin area, Pebble Count and whatever else. So we're going to look at things like that and how they can benefit the whole program. So that covers, I think, the history of, well, as far as I know it. And In closing, I'd certainly like to thank the support, tremendous support that we've gotten from Carol Oman and her staff. Boy, when we want something, we call Carol or Cindy or Diane, and wow, it's there. So we thank you for that very much.